Hi, this is the check-in. I'm Janet Saidi. So, if you have followed the local movements for racial justice and protests in the past weeks and months, you likely came across the organization known as the We Project. Further digging, and you would find a vibrant, artful gallery of photographs of Mid-Missourian. They're at the Boone County Historical Center right now. And these portraits are central to the project. They're portraits of people in our community with an emphasis on those from marginalized groups. The portraits are full of beauty, dignity, and power. And they are the creation of photographer, activist, and We Project creator Valérie Berta. Valérie Berta has had a truly creative, varied life. So we're really happy to have her this hour on the check-in to talk about her art, her activism, and how the two have come together for her recently in this moment. Welcome to the check-in, Valérie Berta.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you for being here. So, um, Valérie, we were just talking with our two historians, Devin Fergus and Jay Sexton, about uh, the election and the moment we're in an election season. Can you give us a sense of how you have used your art and your portraits to kind of bring that uh, together for you through portraiture? What are you trying to do with the We Project?
Yeah, I'm trying to change the narrative with the We Project, really. I'm also trying to give back, and I'm trying to use the little talent that I have, which is photography, to help support and elevate marginalized voices in Missouri. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do also is to acknowledge and celebrate our differences and to confront and dismantle hate. And I think it's especially important in this moment.
Valérie, you were involved. I first came across the name of what you were doing and the We Project through just reading about the protests, particularly the really sort of big one that seemed like a lot of people in our community were involved in at the end of May.
Right.
How did your work as a photojournalist and portrait artist end up being kind of organizing and helping to organize the protest movement here?
I think it's because the project was initially conceived 3 years ago when we were all trying to organize in the wake of the election and to see what we could do to do more. Again, to combat hate and to be more inclusive and to do the work that we all need to do to have a better society. So out of this work of being involved in community groups, in activism, came the We Project. So I was in contact with a lot of local groups doing this work, such as Como for Progress, Race Matters Friends, the Whirly Street Roundtable, and it just came naturally to reach out to some of the people that I'd had the chance to get to know through this work and said, hey, we need to do something. We need to raise our voice. We need to be public about it and raise awareness or help raise awareness in the community.
All right. And Valerie, you just mentioned that you feel like the portraits that you're doing and your work kind of bringing art and activism together would change the narrative. Can you kind of let us know and elaborate on what you mean by changing the narrative, sort of changing the story in people's minds through portraits?
Uh, yeah, I think it's important to change the narrative because the narrative right now is that if you belong to many of those marginalized groups, the narrative and the culture tells you that you're not worthy. Um, so, and especially at a time when inequity and injustice are systemic and are not new at all, but are on the rise, and hate is on the rise. I think the changing of the narrative is important uh, because it goes again, this economic inequity, racism, sexism, ableism, bigotry. All of these are reinforced by a very biased representation, and the results are systemic. They're toxic. They're often lethal. And we've seen that around the nation, but I think we've also seen it here. All these issues are happening right here in our community as well.
Yes. Your these portraits are, by the way, on exhibit in an exhibit at the Boone County Historical Center.
Right.
What do you hope people come away from those exhibits and from the portraits with?
I hope they come away with a heightened awareness of the diversity, the rich, the vibrant diversity that we have here in Mid-Missouri. I hope they come away with a heightened sense of acknowledgement, respect, and celebration of those differences, of that diversity, and that they embrace this humanity that we all are in all our differences, whether it's the color of our skin, whether it's where we come from, whether it's the gender identity or the sexual identity we have, whether it's the God that we worship, the situation we find ourselves in economically, or the disability we live with. We all need to be embraced in all that diversity. And so I hope that people, through looking at those portraits, listening to the voices of the people behind those portraits, they come away with a heightened sense of all this, of this beautiful humanity that we all are.
Okay, that's wonderful. Let me just remind our listeners that you're listening to The Check-In. I'm Janet Saidi, and I'm talking with Valérie Berta. She's the creator of the We Project and the portraits behind them. They're currently on exhibit at the Boone County Historical Center. You can join us. Let us know if you think art and activism can come together. How have you seen that in our community recently? Have you been involved in any of the protests or seen the portraits? Let us know just what's on your mind. You can call us to join this conversation if you have a question or a comment for Valérie Berta. We'll be on for just another 10 minutes of the show, but we can get your call in if you want to join us, 573-882-4991. Again, that's 882-4991. Maybe you're someone who's participated in the portraits. A lot of our listeners and guests are actually featured in some of these portraits. Let us know what that process was like for you, or if you've seen them. You can join us. You can also join us on Twitter. We're at check-in_KBIA. You can tweet at us today. You can also text us at check-in, text to 88474, check-in to 88474. That's a lot, but there's a lot of ways to join us here on the check-in if you want to do that. Valérie, you, I saw, have done well. Let me actually ask you. I want to ask you about doing photojournalism at MU because we're very involved
Right.
in MU and like how you have gone from photojournalism to doing these portraits. But let me just ask one more thing about these actual portraits. A lot of them, as I was just saying, are guests that have been on the check-in, people in our community that a lot of people would recognize. But the portraits really do just kind of exude this incredible power, I would say, which is really amazing to see. What is the process like, and what is your kind of end goal, and what is it like working with all of these varied individuals from our community that you've highlighted in these portraits?
Well, it's been a wonderful experience, and I was saying at the beginning that this project's about giving back, but I've actually gained just as much. I like to say, because
Mm.
I have met and had conversations and sometimes gotten to be friends with uh, a lot of amazing people through that project, by getting to have the honor to take their picture, um, and and put their statement, their voices on the website that I created. So it's as much, even though it's a gift that I'm trying to share my gift and to help and support and celebrate and shine a restorative light on these voices, these people. I've gained just as much or more, I think, as I've given away,
Mm.
because there is we have an incredibly rich and diverse community here in Mid-Missouri, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of them through the project.
All right. And that makes sense that you've gained a lot in the process and made some friends in the process. I saw that you did, if I'm correct in seeing this, photojournalism at the Missouri School of Journalism. What was that process like, and how have you gone from a photojournalist outlook to more of a portraiture outlook with this project and in your work? It's very intimate, very personal. A lot of the projects that you've shared on your website at the We Project. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey from photojournalist and that training to the sort of intimate portraiture storytelling that you do through the portraits that you do now?
Sure. Well, a lot of that story, unfortunately, reflects the decline of photojournalism as a profession.
Mm.
As you well know, the industry has gone down tremendously. When I graduated more than 25 years ago, you were almost assured to have a job as a newspaper photographer, as I did for many years. But now it's, the landscape has changed dramatically. So it's kind of been forced down on me. And also with the world, the way that it's going and the political landscape and my activism, being up a notch, it's all this came together to create this project for me. I've not left photojournalism behind. I try to document as much as I can the protests and the events going on around town right now. But the portraits were the way that I could find, again, using this tool that I know how to use, which is photography and photojournalism, to try to give back and to try to get this dialogue going, which is one of the other goals of the We Project, is to foster dialogue, to be a platform where people come together and have hard conversations.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So you're wanting to foster a dialogue, a platform for hard conversations. Those sound like really useful things for someone with journalistic training to do in an election season. And that's the sort of thing, sort of as an audio
Right,
journalist, I like to feel like we
right.
also have a similar approach. Can you talk to us a little bit about being in the election season, as you mentioned, and as we've just been talking about the rest of this hour as well, and how sort of journalism versus sort of storytelling and stories through portraiture and through, in our case, voices. What can that do for citizens and voters to sort of help connect us in an election season where we are very divided? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think it's going back to what you were saying, that storytelling and journalism, and storytelling is an incredibly powerful tool, because as you know, when you're a journalist, you always start, when you do an essay on a subject, the best way to start it is to start with one person's story, because we all relate to story. We all have a story, and in communicating that story, that very personal story, and then linking it to bigger issues, that's how you get people to connect, to think, to recognize each other's humanity. And so, yeah, storytelling to me is an incredibly powerful tool. And whether it's through portraits, whether it's through the narrative that the story that people tell through those portraits, I think it's really, really needed, because a lot of things are pushing us to be divided. And so anything that you can do to increase the connectedness, the humanity, and the dialogue between people,
Mm.
is really very much needed, I feel, right now.
You're reminding me of a panel that we had recently, and it was a conservative commentator, Michael Gerson, who is a commentator with the Washington Post. And it was interesting talking with him, and then Columbia Missourian editor Ruby Bailey about
Yeah,
diversity in our newsrooms, and he mentioned
right.
the word empathy, and I think empathy is
Mm-hmm.
something that really kind of can come out of this kind of storytelling um,
Yes.
type of journalism. Uh, that yeah, you would agree with that.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yes. And again, when we listen truly and deeply to other people's stories, to what they have to tell us, and we listen with empathy, that's we can start, to mend that division, that the way that things are going right now. So uh, it it's it's a first step, I think, for people to stop, listen, to see the portraits, to read the words that people have. Which is also something I wanted to add, is that those portraits are very much my way of seeing people as an artist, as a photographer. So it is really important to me to ask people to give me a statement about who they are, to give me a story, to write their own story, and to put it out there on the website. And sometimes people come back and do a videotaping of their words, which is even more powerful. And so, yeah, it's very important for me to have that, because those are the words of the people without my filter, if that makes sense. There is no filter. It's not my eye seeing them and portraying them. It is their words, in their voice, in their own words.
That's great. Valérie, we only have a minute or so left, but I have to ask you about a really interesting aspect of your bio, is that you literally, I believe, at one point ran away and joined the circus. Can you
Yes,
talk
I
about that?
did.
What did you do, and how has that influenced your life?
I raised my boys. I had them on the road or close to, and I helped my husband back then, who is a circus performer, and is the reason that I actually ran away with the circus. And I also documented the circus life, our family's life, in a long-term project that I called the Mud Show Diaries.
Yes, and your husband was an acrobat, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Can you leave us with any final thoughts that you have, Valérie, about the portraits and what you'd like to take away from them? And then also just specific in our last few seconds here, how do we see them? Is it actually at the Boone County Historical Society website, or can you actually go in person to see those?
Oh, you can go in person.
Okay.
The gallery's open, I believe, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 12 to 4, and they're also on the website.
So I would say if you need to decompress from the political season, maybe a political act you can do is to go and just engage with these people from Mid-Missouri through these portraits and just engage in those stories.
Yes, yes. Yes, absolutely. And one final thing I wanted to add is that something I feel really deeply is that we're all the result of an intricate web of, social, economic, spiritual values and love and reciprocity. And so this project is part of that, and I hope it does elevate those voices and elevate the love that we need to have for each other in our community and in our nation.
Those are wonderful words to end us on this hour, Valérie Berta. Thank you so much, and best of luck with your photography.
Thank you.
Thanks, Valérie. You can see that exhibit at the Boone County Historic Society. You can also go to the We Project on the website to see those portraits, but I recommend seeing them in person if you can. We appreciate Valérie Berta with the We Project for joining us. Thanks also to Professors Devin Fergus and Jay Sexton for helping us make sense and give historical context to the election season. Thank you for being with us today. The Check-In is produced by Ryan Famuliner, Alicia Haywood, Christopher Husted, and me. We've also got help from engineer Mark Johnson, program director Kyle Felling, directing today's show. We will be back next Thursday, same time and same place. You can also podcast this by just looking at kbia.org and going to the Check-In. You can text us to connect and get information about the upcoming show. You can do that anytime. Text 88474 Check-In. And that's it for this week.